All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another CMS Wire webinar. My name is Michael Tarapchak, and I'm here today to help answer any general or technical questions that you may have. But before we get started, I would like to welcome you to today's webinar, Turning Your Agents Multilingual with AI-Powered Translation. Here's today's timing breakdown. These numbers are just rough, so don't hold us to these. At any point during today's webinar, if you have a question, please don't hesitate to submit those using the Q&A tab that is on the right side of your screen. You can also chat with your fellow attendees by clicking the public chat that is also on the right side of your screen. Today, we also made a personalized demo button that's on the top right side of your screen for you to request a demo with the Language IO team, as well as the link to that in the Docs tab that is on the right side of your screen. Here's a little bit about us here at CMS Wire. We were founded in 2003 and cover the primary topics that you see here on this slide. You can read our great content and register for upcoming conferences and webinars, all by visiting www.cmswire.com. I want to thank today's sponsor, Language IO, for making today's webinar possible. Language IO is an AI-powered translation platform with seamless integrations to Salesforce, Zendesk, ServiceNow, Microsoft, and Oracle with real-time business-accurate translation technology. Language IO helps enterprise companies serve their customers in over 150 different languages with their existing teams. Language IO has industry-leading security, which encrypts all customer personal information and adheres to a strict zero data retention policy. You can learn more at www.languageio.com. And okay, it's time to introduce our speaker. Today, I'm joined by Maria DeBroy, the product owner of integrations at Language IO. Maria, I'll go ahead and pass it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Michael. Let me share my screen here. All right, perfect. So thank you for the intro, Michael. As he said, today we're going to be talking about how you can turn your agents multilingual with AI-powered translations. My name is Maria DeBroy. I am the product owner of integrations here at Language IO. I've been with this company for 3.5 years, and my area is ensuring that our applications can be easily incorporated into the environments that your team is already using so that you can enable them to provide multilingual customer support quickly. So this area includes ServiceNow, Zendesk, Salesforce, and Oracle. Right, our agenda for today. So today we'll be talking about the challenges that organizations may face as they are scaling and starting to incorporate multilingual support. And then I'll talk about our Language IO solution and how we can help you mitigate those challenges. I'll give a brief product demo of one of our Salesforce applications. Then I'll go over some success stories that some of our customers have shared with us. And then, of course, at the end, we'll have some time for a quick Q&A. All right, our mission here at Language IO is to deliver secure conversations in any language through the power of AI. First, I want to show some of our customers. You'll see here that some of these organizations are Fortune 500 organizations such as Shell, GM, Sony, P&G. Some of these organizations make over 1 billion ARR and average about 10,000 employees. You'll notice also that these organizations are very diverse from one another. So we have companies such as Remitly in the finance sector, Sky in media and entertainment, even CrossFit and consumer brands and retail. So we're not only tailored for one vertical, but for many different ones. And I hope you see that these customers are a testament that we are able to deliver on our mission that I stated previously. All right, so let's talk about some of the challenges with multilingual customer support. So let's say that in your organization, you have identified the need for translations. Perhaps customers are reaching out to you in a language that your team is not equipped for. If you're part of this webinar, I'm guessing you're in that boat. So a quick way to make this happen would be to use a free service online. However, this can lead to many issues. So if you think about how you talk to people over text, be it in a personal setting or in a professional setting, you're likely going to have perhaps some grammatical errors, some spelling issues. You're probably going to be using some slang. If you're talking to your colleagues, you're very likely using technical terms that are very specific to your organization. And without an AI layer in the loop, these translation engines can maybe don't have the ability to catch these nuances or correct these grammatical errors before translating them. So this can lead to lack of accuracy because perhaps they also lack the context. Another thing is brand voice. So let's take, for example, Sky. Sky is one of our customers that we work very closely with. Sky is their brand name, but also Sky is a proper noun. So if you run that through a translation engine, you may get a translation that is technically correct, but it can be incorrect in the context of the conversation. And this can also happen with names of products. I'll give an example of that later on in the presentation. Another thing is security risks. When you're using a free tool online, you don't have the certainty that your information isn't being stored anywhere. And it is likely that your customers are sharing confidential information with you, especially if you are talking about customer support. So for example, they may share, even their names is PII, email addresses, physical addresses, credit card numbers. So if you're using a free translation software online, and if you're feeding it that data, then it can really put your customers' information at risk. Another thing is poor efficiency. So oftentimes if you're using a free service online, it is a separate application that is external to the CRMs that you may be using. So over time, this can lead to increased average handling time. With my experience working with customers over these past years, I've learned that even just a couple of clicks here and there can increase average handling time significantly. And there's also a study that says that toggling between applications sum up to 5 weeks worth of work. So using an external application can really impact your agent's efficiencies. Another thing is slowing growth. So if you opt to not use a free tool online, you're very likely hiring personnel that speak multiple different languages. I was at a conference a couple of weeks back. I was at CCW, and I was talking to someone that told me that they have great agents that have in-depth knowledge of their product. They're very efficient, and they have a high level of expertise. But then they're hiring multilingual agents that may be proficient in different languages, but it takes them a long time to ramp up to be as efficient as the current agents that they have. So, of course, the ideal scenario would be to maintain your current agents, but enabling them to speak all of the languages. So now let me tell you how our solution can make that happen. All right, the Language I/O solution. I'll briefly touch on these points on this slide, and then I'll elaborate on them and give more examples in further slides. So the first one is ease of use. So with our applications, as I mentioned, they are integrated into the CRMs. They are not external applications. Another thing is accuracy. Because we have AI layers in the loop, then our translation is just more accurate, more context aware, and more consistent. Another thing is security. We are the only zero data retention company in the AI translation space. I will elaborate more on this one specifically. Another thing is customer centricity. So when you become our customers, we are with you every step of the way. Customers have a heavy influence on our product roadmap. If you want more details on this, please go ahead and read our G2 reviews. One other thing is cost savings. As I talked about, if you're hiring personnel that are speaking multiple different languages, that can be very expensive. There's data that suggests that it takes about 180 hours to hire someone and then 180 hours to train those people. And of course, if you're seeking people that have a higher level of expertise, these numbers will increase as well. So it's just a lot of time and a lot of cost in order to enable your team to be multilingual. One other thing is data visibility. With all of our customers, we are completely transparent and give them the tools that they need to be able to track specifically how they're using our product. All right, so here, Michael, this is where we'll take a poll. So, and let me see. So the question to the poll is, which one of these is the most important when you work with third-party vendors? All right, I'll give it a couple more seconds here. All right, so I'll cap it there. So it looks like most of you said that accuracy is one of the most important things for translation. And then next by ease of use, followed by security, and the lowest was customer centricity. All right, thank you all for answering that poll. So let's continue. All right, so let's talk about our language I/O solution and how we use AI to increase accuracy and security. So with our integrations, we have a chat application, an email application, which is also interchangeable with tickets, cases, incidents, depending on your CRM, and also article translation. So we have those three applications in Salesforce, Zendesk, ServiceNow, and Oracle. In addition, we do have some chatbot translation products. We have a Chrome extension, and we also have an open API. So if you have any developers on staff, that is also a resource there. All right, so in the next couple of slides, I'm going to be breaking down our translation tool and be dissecting so I can show you where we use AI and how this process works. So first, let's talk through this message here, and I'll emphasize where we use context awareness here. So the message is, "Hi there, my Apple Pencil isn't working and I cannot figure out why. Please help." My email is patsmith44@gmail.com. My phone number is 541-414-6022. So the first thing we're going to do is to identify the company-specific terms. In this case, we have the Apple Pencil. So this one, again, is a product name, but it's also two separate nouns. So that is very prone to be mistranslated by standalone translation engines. The other thing is we're going to identify misspellings and slang. So in this case, we have "please help." Instead of the word "please," they have PLS. And then "my phone is misspelled." It's just missing the space in between. And then we also have identified PII. In this case, we have the email and the phone number. All right, so the first thing is that we do partner up with the biggest translation engines out there. This includes Google, Microsoft, Google Palm, soon to transfer to Gemini, DeepL. And these are our partners. But not only do we use these translation engines, but this is where our proprietary machine learning algorithms come into place, because we do pre-processing and post-processing of the translation. So for the pre-processing, the first thing we're going to do here is, since we already identified the product names, we're going to do what we call glossary imposition. So with all these technical terms, we're going to replace it with what we want the translation to be. In this case, Apple Pencil will remain to be Apple Pencil in all different languages. It doesn't matter what the language is, it will remain as Apple Pencil. In some scenarios, some product names or some brand names may have a specific translation for that product or brand. So that's the first step we're going to do. We're going to impose that glossary. That means that even after translation, that term will stay the same, or will be the correct term that you want it to be. The next thing we did is optimize the text. So if you remember, we had a misspelling in my phone, and then please help was abbreviated. So we have fixed all that and optimized it for translation. And then we have what we call the smart model selection, which is our first machine learning algorithm that we use to intelligently select which engine is the best for that language pair. So for example, Google Translate may be better at Spanish to English translations, while DeepL may be better from perhaps Dutch to Portuguese translation. So that is the first step that we do. We intelligently select the best engine for that pair. Then after the engine is selected, we have what we call a model failover. So in the event that one of these is down, so for example, let's say Microsoft is completely down and we can't get a translation, or if the translation vendor is taking too much time, then we're going to fail over to the next best engine for that language pair. So once we do have the translation complete, we actually have yet another step before we are ready to present that translation to the user, and that is real-time quality assessment. So we have a feature called TQE, Translation Quality Estimate. So once we get the translation back from these engines, we're going to run an analysis on this. And if we get a value that is below a certain threshold of quality, meaning that translation quality is not up to the standards that we want it to be, we will run it through another translation until we get the best accurate translation. And all of this happens within a matter of milliseconds. Oh, and one thing I wanted to point out here before I move to this slide. If you've noticed, I've blanked out the email and phone number. And this is because we encrypt all PII before we send it out for translation. So this means that the translation vendors will never see this PII from your customers. In addition to that, what we mean by zero data retention is that all of the text that you're sending to us for translation is never retained by either the vendor or engine and us. So we are actually, we have a contract with these partners, and they are, legally bound to not retain any of your data. So if you use perhaps Google Translate online versus Google Translate with us, you also may not have that certainty that they're not holding on to this information. But with us, you can be 100% sure that they aren't. So all content is erased from Google Translate or whichever engine we're using, and then it's also erased from our databases and servers. We also have some security certifications, such as ISO 27001, and we're also HIPAA compliant and GDPR compliant, among other things. So here you can see our certifications a little bit more zoomed in. And over on the right-hand side, this is Heather Shoemaker. She is the CEO of Language.io, and she wrote an article for Fortune magazine about the biases in AI and how those affect translations. So here, Michael, I believe this is where we're going to do another poll. And for this one, please tell me how confident are you that your company is implementing AI in a secure way? All right. So it looks like most of you are somewhat confident. And then looks like most of you are not very confident, and we have just a few that are not confident at all. All right. Okay, let's move on to our next slide. So here's the end result, right? So I walked you through from start to finish how we process each translation. In this scenario, we have English to French, but with us, you do not have to have English in the loop. With some of our competitors, English is required, but with us, you could do any language pair of the 150 languages that we support. All right, so now I will walk you through a quick product demo. This is Salesforce. And over on the left-hand side, I am the agent. Over on the right-hand side, I am the customer. So I'm gonna go ahead and start a chat. And I'm gonna go ahead and quickly accept as the agent. Right, the first thing that you'll see is that the end user received an autoresponder in Spanish. The agent is seeing the conversation in English. As the end user, I'm going to go ahead and send a message. In this example, the agent is part of a company that deals with bettings for sports. So let me point out a few things on the source article. The first one being, sorry, something's popping out in my screen. The first one being RG. This is an abbreviation for Roland Garros, which is another word for the French Open. And then we have Rafa, which is just the abbreviation of Rafael Nadal, the tennis player. So actually, let me take you to Google Translate to show you the difference. So if you only use Google Translate, you will see here in the translation that RT just got capitalized, and then Rafa, again, just got capitalized. But if I take you back to our application, then you will see here that instead of just capitalizing RG, we translated it to the French Open. And then instead of maintaining Rafa, we changed it to Rafael Nadal. So in this case, because your agents are dealing with many different chats and cases at the same time, then they don't have to spend any extra effort trying to understand the context of the conversation. And then they just get a translation that they can quickly read and quickly solve the problem too. So now let me show you how the agent can reply. So in this sentence, they used a lot of slang. So it says, "I am psyched to help you out today." Psyched being, a slang term for being excited or happy. So I'm going to go ahead and send this translation out, and you'll notice that I have this toggle here for optimization. So what this does is before we send it out for translation, we're going to optimize the text so we remove any of those terms that might confuse the engines. So for example, here we switch this to "I am psyched to help you out today" to "I'm happy to help." And then this provided the translation engine with better source content in order to yield an improved translation. So let me go back to our slides. All right, so I'll share a couple of success stories here real quick. I know we're kind of running a little bit out of time. All right, so Intralinks is one of our customers. They are in the finance sector, and they enable organizations to be able to securely share confidential documents. They are a global company, and we have helped them increase NPS and reduce average handling time significantly. Then we have Shutterstock. They are the largest stock photography providers, and their biggest use case with them was article translations. So this has enabled their customers to self-serve and solve issues just by looking at their knowledge base, and has decreased the amount of tickets that come through. But in the event that they do have tickets, we provide them with that translation service as well. We also have Eurostar. They are in the transportation industry, and they already actually had multilingual support agents on staff. However, they were at a shortage when it came to French and Dutch speaking agents. So we, provided them with the tools to be able to translate French and Dutch support cases. So you can see more information. We have more detailed information on these on our website that you can look at. All right, so for a quick summary, so the biggest thing is security for us. So we are zero data retention. Other providers do not provide that. Model failover, again, if we just make sure that you do have an accurate translation regardless of engines being down. We're very easy. We can integrate you in less than 24 hours. We do not require English in the loop. We have smart model selection and multiple machine learning algorithms in the loop to improve the accuracy of the translation. Yeah, and then I'll leave this here a little bit, but then now we have some time for Q&A. Yeah, Michael, if you want to.
All right, thank you for that presentation. Now let's get into some Q&A. For the first question we have here, what's the latency normally? How quickly does the translation happen?
Yeah, good question. So our translation on average returns within less than milliseconds.
Awesome. And then for our second question here, how is using Language I/O different from using one of these translation engines like Google Translate?
Yeah, so the biggest difference is that we have pre-processing and post-processing machine learning algorithms in the loop. So we increase the accuracy and the quality of the translation by applying glossary terms, by optimizing the text, and by being more context aware, so that when the translation occurs, it is more accurate and also more secure than using Google Translate.
Awesome. You always want it to be more secure. For the third question we have here, how do you train and continuously improve your translation solution if you're not retaining any data?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So we do not retain any of the text that is being sent through, but we do collect some data associated with that. So we have information on the language pairs that you're using, and we have information on essentially each translation ID. And with that, we have some stats on the quality of each translation. So we have those data points among other data points. And with that information alone, we're able to train our machine learning models with that information without retaining any of the actual text that is being sent through.
And then Maria, for our fourth and final question here, what's the accuracy normally? Do you have an average, or is it higher than the industry average?
That's a good question. So for us, we collect. We have multiple different channels in how we calculate those, but we do use mechanisms of supervised versus unsupervised learning. So supervised learning is when there's a human in the loop. So for example, agents or supervisors, when they review our translations, either during an active chat session or afterwards, they are able to provide us with feedback on those translations. And with supervised learning, we have experienced less than 1% negative feedback. So that means that in all of translations that we do, less than 1% received a negative feedback for the translation.
Wow, that is awesome. Less than 1% is pretty good. And I just want to say thank you, Maria. That's all we have today. And I want to thank Language IO as well for sponsoring today's webinar. And last but not least, thanks to you all in the audience for your time and attention today. Today's webinar was recorded, and you'll be receiving a link to that recording in a follow-up email. So keep an eye on your inbox for that. And in the meantime, thank you all once more, and we'll see you on the next one. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.